All right, thank you, Chair. We'll start with Asada Brown.
Here.
Okay. Monica Dillenberg.
Here.
Cecily Harris. Not seeing her. Todd Kemry.
This is Todd. I'm here.
Great. Bob Moeller.
Here.
Jeremy Peichel.
Jeremy's here.
Thank you. Anthony Taylor. Not seeing Anthony. Canna Yang. No Canna. Tony Russo.
Sure.
Okay, we do have a quorum.
All right, thank you. Then we'll
Anthony.
call ourselves to order.
What was that? Oh, Anthony Taylor. Looks like he's here as well.
Okay, that's what I thought it sounded like. Before we get too far into this, I don't know if this is handled by you or Emmett or Greg or someone else, but I see for our information item that's on the agenda, the presentation has not yet been posted / linked on the website yet. So if it would be possible to get that up for anyone who might not have it in hand, that would be helpful as we go through the rest of the meeting.
Mr. Chair, I just got that presentation and was able to forward it on to Greg Ritchie, who runs this meeting from a technical side. He'll be sharing it throughout the meeting. I will get it posted as soon as the meeting's over if anybody wants to go back and look at it.
Okay, that works.
Okay.
And then we will start with approval of our agenda, which we can do by consensus. I'll wait for a moment to see if anyone has any additions or changes to our agenda for the day. Okay, hearing none, we can consider our agenda approved as presented and posted. And that will bring us to approval of our March 3rd, 2022 meeting minutes. We will take a motion second and do discussion and vote on that. So we can take a motion from anyone who was present at that meeting.
This is Jeremy. So moved.
Motion by Jeremy. Thank you. Do we have a second?
This is Monica. I second.
Thank you, Monica. Are there any corrections or other discussion on our minutes? Hearing none, we will proceed with a vote on the approval of minutes for March 3rd as presented. Go ahead with a roll call again. Sandy.
Okay, we'll start with Asada Brown.
Okay.
Monica Dillenberg.
Aye.
Cecily Harris.
Aye.
Todd Kemry. Did we lose Todd?
Todd's here.
Okay. Bob Moeller.
Aye.
Jeremy Peichel.
Aye.
Anthony Taylor.
Aye.
I see Canna Yang is in now. Canna.
Aye.
And Tony Russo.
Aye. And Todd, we heard is here, but how do you vote on approval of minutes, Todd?
Todd says aye. Thank you.
Go.
Okay, minutes are approved.
All right. Thank you, Sandy. That brings us to the public invitation portion of our minutes. As we've been doing meeting remotely, we're taking pre-registration info by email to get people access to our online platform. As of when I checked in with Emmett a couple hours ago, we didn't have anybody signed up. Has anything changed in that time?
Tony, we're in the same situation. No one signed up.
Okay. Well, then we will move on to our business item for the day. It is for Big Marine Park Reserve, a Park Acquisition Opportunity Fund grant for Washington County, and we have Chee Yang to present that. Go ahead, Chee.
All right. Thank you. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, we can.
Awesome. All right. Hello, Chair, Commissioners, and Council member. My name is Chee, and I'm a planner with the Park Unit at the Council. Today, I'm here to present the Big Marine Park Reserve Park Acquisition Opportunity Fund for the Kelley property on behalf of Washington County. With me is my colleague Jessica, Senior Planner, and from Washington County, I have Sharon and Sandy. They'll be available at the end to help answer questions. Next slide, please. Big Marine Park Reserve is in the northeast of the Metropolitan region in the northern part of Washington County in May Township. The image on the right is figure 1 of exhibit 1 in the business item. Next slide, please. The park reserve is known to have excellent natural resources with high quality wildlife habitat. Washington County has acquired 657 acres with 205 acres currently open to the public. The open area is outlined in red on the map to the left of the presentation. This is figure 2 of exhibit 1 from the business item. The Kelley property is directly south of the park reserve. The property is a mix of prairie and hardwood forest, and about 27% of the property is designated as wetland. On the south edge of the property, there are 2 existing easements that run along County Highway 4, a gas and a power line easement. It is not shown in the presentation, but it is figure 3 of exhibit 1 in the business item. The easements do not impact the natural resources or the value of the property. The images to the right of the presentation is figure 4 of exhibit 1 in the business item. These images show the existing conditions during fall and winter. Last month, with the permission of the property owner, Jessica, Sandy, Sharon, and I, we had the opportunity to visit the site, and we had a great experience hiking through the property, following some deer tracks, and we even saw some deer in the frozen area of the wetland. So it was a pretty neat experience overall, and this would definitely be a great addition to the park reserve. Additionally, a part of the future Glacial Hills Regional Trail is planned to, and Washington County is within its $1.7 million per fiscal year limit for the ENRTF Park Acquisition Opportunity Fund. Next slide, please. Our recommendation to the Metropolitan Council is to approve a grant up to $962,700 to Washington County to acquire the 79.04 acre Kelley Land and Cattle Company property located at 170th Street North in May Township for Big Marine Park Reserve, and authorize the Community Development Director to execute the grant agreement and restrictive covenant on behalf of the council. With that, it concludes the presentation. Now I welcome any questions and comments. A reminder, Washington County staffs are here to help answer questions. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Chee. Any questions? Not hearing anyone jumping on it quite yet. I will offer one clarification just from something that popped through my mind as I was listening. I'm not sure if you said this wrong or I heard it wrong. It doesn't really matter. But you mentioned the appraised value of $1,268,900, and then another number, as I think you had called it purchase price, but it's actually the total cost. And the reason is that there's some stewardship and legal and environmental assessment fees beyond the purchase price. No, we are not actually purchasing for more than the appraisal. We just have a total cost more than the appraisal. The purchase agreement price is the same as the appraisal. So it doesn't kick in our extra policies about amounts above appraisal.
That is correct. There are just the stewardship costs and all that, so that adds up to the total cost.
If there aren't questions, we can also take a motion and move into other discussion. Would anyone care to make a motion?
This is Jeremy. I'll move the recommended 2 actions there. I'll leave it to you to read, Mr. Chair.
Okay. We have a motion from Jeremy. Do we have a second?
Second.
This is Monica, I second. Sorry.
I heard 2. Monica's was clearer, but I think the other might have been Bob.
That's correct.
All right. Either way, we have one. So the motion is that the Metropolitan Council approve a grant of up to $900,700 to Washington County to acquire the 79.04 acre Kelley land and cattle company property located at 170th Street North in May Township for Big Marine Park Reserve, and authorize the Community Development Director to execute the grant agreement and restrictive covenant on behalf of the council. What discussion do we have on this?
Tony, I have something to offer briefly.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I feel like we just had something related to the Veterans Park there. I don't remember if it was a master plan change or if there was another acquisition in that area, but just a beautiful place, and I'm glad we're able to have another voluntary sale that just expands the parkland there.
Yeah, and I believe what you're referring to is we had a minor boundary adjustment to pull one part out of the park boundaries and add it to the regular park, and I think on the other side, we added land into the park boundary, kind of roughly down.
Tony, you're fading out a little bit when you speak. So I don't know if you can fix that.
I can probably try just speaking up better. Yeah,
That's way better.
You're remembering we did have a minor boundary adjustment.
I remember it like it was just yesterday. Tony, I'm filling in because I can't hear you anymore. But Sandy Brewer and Sharon Price both worked very closely on that with us as we moved it through the council. So.
I see in here there's a statement about the easements that they do not impact the natural resources or value of the property. Missing from that statement, can we get confirmation that it doesn't impact the recreational use as planned in the master plan? I don't know if Chee knows that or if that would have to come from our Washington County folks.
I don't, to my knowledge, I don't think it will impact recreation in the future, but I will pass it to Sandy or Sharon from Washington County to see if they have an answer.
All right, go ahead, Sandy or Sharon, if you can speak to the easement impact on recreational facilities planned.
Price with Washington County, and as of right now, where the location of those the gas line and the overhead power lines from will not impact where we plan to do our recreational activities in the master plan. So they will not impact that either. We'll still be able to do what we plan to do in that park there.
Perfect. That's all I need to know for that. Any other commissioners have things to raise? All right, while you think of more, I see Susan Vento has your hand raised. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to second Commissioner Pichel's praise of this spectacular spot, and I just want to do a shout out for Sharon and Sandy and the entire Parks team in Washington County. I had an opportunity last summer to represent the council at the Ravine celebration in near Cottage Grove. It was that too is a beautiful site, and council member Francisco Gonzalez was not able to attend, so I took his place, and I was thrilled to do that. Washington County does a terrific job with their projects, and they're to be commended for that, and I hope you take that back to your entire team. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sue.
This is Bob Mueller.
Yeah, go ahead, Bob.
I just would like to add my support to this recommendation. That looks like a terrific addition to that park. So I'm very supportive.
right, thank you. As park is a long time coming for those who are a little bit newer to this. I believe the land boundary map for this goes back to 1985, and we're gradually chipping away.
Tony, your audio is really fading in and out.
It's good to know. I don't know if there's a lot I can do about it. I suspect I'll be with my actual internet connection topics.
I'll just add in that Tony was saying this Big Marine Park Reserve dates back a long ways into the mid 80s when the original master plan was completed. So
Yes, thank you, Emmett.
that was much clearer now, Tony.
Any other discussion? Any further discussion? All right, hearing none, we can proceed with a vote on the motion as presented. Take a roll call by Sandy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We'll start with Asada Brown,
Aye.
Monica Dillenberg,
Aye.
Cecily Harris,
Aye.
Todd Kemmery,
Todd Kemmery says aye.
Bob Moeller,
Aye.
Jeremy Peichel,
Aye.
Anthony Taylor, Anthony Taylor. I believe you're on mute. Canna Yang.
Aye.
Tony Russo.
Aye.
Okay, we just didn't hear from Anthony Taylor. I'm not sure if he's having audio problems as well, but the motion carries.
Okay. So motion. Anthony, you need to record a vote on that. Let us know whenever you're available. Otherwise, we can move on then to our information. It is about the Dakota County Marketing Awareness Plan Community Engagement Finding. We have Anna Ferris from Dakota County staff to present that. And I think as you start, I will try briefly connecting and reconnecting to the audio. Go ahead, Anna. Assuming we first can confirm that Anna's connection works. Is she here?
Anna, can you hear? Yeah, there you are. Anna is currently muted, I see. I don't know, Greg, if you're able to unmute her. It's Anna Ferris. Thanks, Greg.
Okay, thank you so much. I apologize. I'm not familiar with this platform, so I was not figuring out how to unmute. I apologize. That's embarrassing.
You're coming through loud and clear now, Anna, so no problem whatsoever. Thank you for volunteering to do this presentation today. I just want to express, we're trying to take a number of different approaches with the equity nudge, and thought it would be useful or exciting to hear from someone outside the council. So Anna Ferris is coming to us from Dakota County today, and we are grateful, Anna. Thank you.
Oh, thank you for the invitation, and good evening, Chair Russo and commissioners. I apologize, but can you see me? I was trying to turn on my video, but again, I'm so sorry. I'm not very familiar with this platform, so I'm having some trouble figuring out where that location
we aren't seeing you, Anna. I'm speaking now because I don't think Tony's audio is working very well. but we were seeing you earlier, so something you did, but it's not a problem if you want to just go through your PowerPoint without your camera on. It's your choice.
Thank you. Well, I will get started, and if I figure it out along the way, I will turn it on. And so thank you so much, Emmett, for the invitation to be here. I'm here today to share out the findings from the community. Well, first of all, I guess I should introduce myself. I'm Anna Ferris, she, her, hers, and I'm Dakota County Parks Outreach Coordinator. And I'm here today to share out the what we heard from the community engagement phase that was the basis for our marketing awareness and promotion plan. This is a project in county terms. However, in my consideration, it's much more than a project. This was really the starting point for our outreach program, which is pretty new still. We're in our 3rd year. And today I just want to tell you a little bit of the story of that program and also have some discussion and hear what you think. So really we started out by asking, listening, learning, and building partnerships with groups and leaders and members of the communities we wanted to better serve. So really this PowerPoint is a snapshot of what we did, what we heard, and what has grown from that so far. This is a project and this effort is not perfect. We're still learning and growing as we build more connections and relationships, and I welcome feedback, ideas, comments, and suggestions from everyone here today. I'm excited to meet with you. So a little bit about the timeline. This started back in 2019, and really the findings that you'll see represented here were gathered through 2020, the beginning of 2020. And then this effort was put on pause due to COVID, and we really focused on maintaining relationships and providing support, and picked it back up in late 2020, 2021, and developed a plan based on what we heard. And I also wanted to mention that my position in this effort are funded by the Parks and Trails Legacy Grant Funds. So for the foreseeable future, Dakota County is committed to those priorities for this funding source. Next slide, please. So this project had 3 primary goals, which guided the development of the research questions. And really the first one was increasing awareness and visitation of the park system, both by current users, potential new users, with a strong focus on groups underrepresented in regional parks visitation. And then goal 2 was building an inclusive, welcoming Dakota County Parks identity, both in our communications, but also in how we operate and what we do. And then the third piece was increasing overall and ongoing engagement with Dakota County Parks and Greenways. Next slide, please. And as part of this project, we had quite a large variety of audiences of focus. So again, the goal was to connect with both current and new users. And we really focused on both Dakota County regional residents, African American, Latinx, Somali, and East African, Southeast Asian, and South Asian Indian communities, as well as American Indian and Indigenous communities. And I have a little asterisk there because we heard feedback from some of our partners that both of those terms, some preferred one, other preferred the other. So I've included both, and low-income households, people with disabilities, youth, as well as older adults. Next slide, please. And our approach was really to meet with organizations and community organizations and leaders first to identify the best way to involve their communities, and then partner together whenever possible on that involvement. And this project really focused on gathering feedback, but really starting out building relationships with partners and community members. And the goal was to build a foundation for this work moving forward. Next slide, please. So this is just a quick recap of what we did in that space from 2019 to early 2020, dialogue groups, stakeholder meetings, interviews, and then both an online survey as well as a pop-up survey. Next slide, please. And I wanted to share a little bit about what we heard. We asked questions both related to awareness as well as ongoing engagement with the parks, but for the purposes of this equity nudge, and because it is a shorter period of time, it seemed like what we heard related to engagement was more relevant to the purpose of this meeting. And I'm interested in, as we go through this, if anything as resonates with you, maybe does not resonate, or if you have things you'd like to expand on or talk about, and then we'll have some time at the end for discussion. So we heard about 5 areas of opportunity that were identified for engaging a broader and more diverse audience of community members in the park system, and I'll take a moment to talk about a couple of aspects of each one. Next slide, please. The first one was providing more culturally appropriate and welcoming parks. So this included providing more multilingual experiences, both in communications and also in our programs, hosting cultural activities in partnership with local community groups, and increasing cultural representation in the parks, both in our staff as well as in visitorship. Next slide, please. The second area we heard was for a desire for more opportunities to be a part of decision-making in the park system. So we heard a need for advisory councils, both suggestion for multicultural perspectives, as well as specifically for American Indian or Indigenous perspectives, desire for shared governance or management of the land in partnership with Indigenous or American Indian communities, and then a parks position that would be for an American Indian or Indigenous community member to provide input on natural resource management from that perspective. Next slide, please. Ensuring accessibility was the third area we heard about, and this included both physical infrastructure improvements, but also accessible equipment, and then more program options and broader program options. So we heard that art, music, and performances are good opportunities to engage people with disabilities through accessible seating, having a family-friendly environment, an environment where people feel comfortable vocalizing. So based on this feedback, we've made an effort to better promote our accessible seating, as well as provide ASL interpretation through these events, and really promote them as this type of space. Next slide, please. The fourth area was engaging families and youth, and so increasing the number and types of family-friendly events, incorporating technology to increase engagement of youth, specifically around photography, and using technology in the parks in that way. Upgrading some of the infrastructure that families use most, so spaces like picnic shelters, grills, and areas for gathering. And then offering more rental equipment and activity instruction was another area of this piece. Next slide, please. And then the last piece was leveraging parks to build community connections. So we heard a desire for more events to intentionally build community relationships, events where all is invited, and there's food, activities, and giveaways. This included both like cultural events as well as potlucks for culture sharing, and the Know Your Neighbor event, which was taking place in Burnsville a few years ago and is intended to really build understanding between community members. And we heard a strong desire for this, both from the perspective of connecting with other people, but also from the perspective of building more understanding and reducing some of the discrimination that takes place in park spaces through really trying to address the underlying causes of that discrimination and building understanding between people. And then also a piece of this was developing programs to foster ability inclusive connections. So having activities that are accessible for all and having opportunities for people to connect with each other through that way. Next slide, please. And really for this work, partnership is everything. We're very fortunate and to have grown a variety of partnerships, that many of which started through this project. And so these are just some examples of the different programs and events that we've done in partnership with our community partners. And then the next steps, next slide, please. So the next steps for this project are that we're in the process of reconvening and sharing with our partners both what we've heard and what we've developed based on what we've heard, and having discussions about the highest priorities, things that might be missing or might need changes, and then our approach for ongoing engagement and discussion, and planning with our partners, and then finalizing the implementation based on what we hear, and then proposing a strategy also for things that might be needed but might fall outside the scope of this plan. And then reconvening and sharing out how we incorporate those. Next slide, please. So that was a very light overview of what we've heard and what we've done. And so I wanted to open it up to discussion, questions. These are just some prompts, but I also welcome anything beyond this, and I'm interested in your feedback.
Great, thank you, Anna. Anyone have initial feedback and questions? I was wondering, in your next steps, you mentioned possibly some sort of advisory group to follow up. And does Dakota County have a Parks Commission already? And would this be separate from that or in addition to that? Or does that not exist as a level currently?
We do have a Parks Commission. I think the interest in an advisory group was more focused on like equity focused advisory. So more focused on that theme and having a variety of cultural perspectives. So maybe not an official advisory, but having maybe a work group or some way to incorporate our partners in our planning too.
Okay. And then if it's kind of its own thing, I'm wondering also if the scope of that extends to other stuff that the county does generally, or is it particular to equity within the parks context? How is that being organized, if it's organized?
That's a really that is a really wonderful question. At this point, we're really in the beginning phases of having these conversations, so we haven't quite gotten that far yet. And so I think more to come on that, but most likely be focused on potentially on this project or on the parks itself. So more of like maybe work group is a better term for it, but essentially we heard there's a desire for involvement, so we're trying to figure out what that could look like. So still figuring out some of the scope and terminology on that.
Okay. And I know here at the council there is a separate equity advisory board, and some of the stuff they talk about impacts parks, but not all of it. And so we have our, and we're frequently talking about equity, but it's all within the park. We occasionally have conversations back and forth, huge point meetings and efforts. And I don't know if it's similar for you that ends up kind of coming out of that, or it'll be more specific to the parks focus. There's a couple of, it gets complicated basically.
Yes, it does. And I just got a little message. So one of the other ways we're approaching this too is with our natural resources department are creating a contracted position for an Indigenous liaison to work with us on the bison project, and that's based on the feedback we've heard as well. So also being able to incorporate this feedback through staff through contracted positions too, and being able to add those to our team as well.
All right, thank you. I see Jeremy, you have a hand raised.
I do. Thank you, Chair. I'm wondering about the outreach events and if when making these direct connections with underrepresented populations, if there are lists of upcoming programming opportunities or ways to get connected, or if it's more of an information gathering thing. Because I've seen some of these where it's just sort of sharing we exist and maybe not having a definitive follow-up. And so I'm just curious where you fall with regard to having a firm destination, time, opportunity for folks to engage when you do conduct the outreach.
Yeah, absolutely. So we always, for all of our events, we try to have some point of contact for follow-up. So either through opting in, we have for our, based on some of the feedback we've heard about preferences, also for communication, we have a Spanish language text program. So if somebody wants to opt in, they can sign up if it's by email. And then we try to share out our upcoming offerings as much as possible as well, because our goal is to maintain, once we have a touch point with someone, is really to maintain that relationship and also make it really easy to interact with us as well. So for example, a text program that grew out of just feedback, and then that we heard that was wanted and needed. And so now that's grown to about 220 subscribers. And we keep checking in and trying to make sure that that's working for folks, but really trying to find ways to keep conversation, communication going after that first point of contact.
Those WhatsApp groups also do that.
Yes, we have a couple. I have to say we don't run any WhatsApp groups. We do participate in a few WhatsApp groups as well, which are really, really great ways to connect with folks and just be very available for questions and direct contact as well.
This is Bob Mueller. I really like what I saw on your presentation. It felt like to me like you had really reached out in a number of ways to a number of groups and with effectiveness. I was curious, I mean, potluck dinners are sort of a stable kind of a process that Northern Europeans have used for years to get together. Is that culturally similar in a lot of the other groups that you're meeting with?
I would have to say we specifically heard that from especially the Latinx community. So that's something, and we've done a few potlucks, not in food safety regulations make it difficult to do that on a large public scale, but with small private groups supporting their potlucks and things like that. So that is something that we've done, especially in picnic settings, is support groups that are doing that activity. It does become complex on a more public, large scale because of liability, but
Sure.
I would love to figure that out at some point if it's something we can do, because I think sharing food is really, and I've heard that's a really important way to share culture. So maybe sometime the liability can catch up with that.
Nice work.
Thank you.
Yeah, I know there are some exceptions in law for that sort of thing, but I think a lot of them are targeted at like churches and particular social groups, and they definitely aren't going to work well for a government. That's an interesting point.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Actually, Tony, you bring up an interesting point with churches. I'm curious if there was directed outreach for churches or ways to engage with those populations so that maybe they could go from church to the park, perhaps, to enjoy the creation.
Yeah, absolutely. So we did do pop-up events, I believe, at 2 churches, and also reached out to the mosque that is closest to the park system as well, and had conversations with a couple of the leaders and staff there too. So I agree, and I think both churches and other faith-based organizations are great ways to connect with folks, and that's something we're interested in continuing to do more and more, as especially as folks are gathering more now that we're able to do that in person in a different, more open way at this point.
All right. Anyone else? And if you think of anything later, I'm guessing your contact info is probably on that first slide, maybe.
It is not, but I can share it with Emmett. I think he could share it out with the group or with Sandy,
Okay.
and they could
So if
share it
anyone
out.
has follow-up stuff later, contact Emmett and we'll go through there. That'll work.
Anna, if you could just send it to me, I'll make sure all the commissioners get it.
Thank you so much. And thank you, Chair and Commissioners, for listening to my short presentation. And I'm sorry you couldn't see me. I will practice at Cisco WebEx before I use it again.
All right, thank you. That'll bring us on then to the reports portion of our meeting. I guess our big thing, you guys have all probably seen some emails. The council's talking about returning to in-person meetings next month. I did want to double check that there weren't any outstanding issues that might impact that. Emmett's been making some phone calls, checking in with people. If there is anything that hasn't been raised, please let Emmett and myself know quickly if we need to do anything else to accommodate any commissioners for that. But otherwise, I think it'll be kind of back to pretty much business as usual, perhaps with a little bit more cleaning and stuff like that. I know some people have talked about we could mask if people want to. I don't know if anybody has strong opinions on that or not. I don't know that I really do at this point, but if anybody does, we can certainly do that. You don't necessarily need to feel like you need to identify yourself publicly now. So again, if that's something you want to have us do, let myself or Emmett know, and we can make that happen. And for those of you who maybe are new enough that you've never been to a meeting down at the council offices, I saw Sandy sent some information about how the parking and reimbursement stuff works. There's 2 lots owned by other entities that the council has agreements with. So either one of those you can park in and then talk to Sandy about how to get that validation thing for it. I need to remember this process and actually like start putting time off on my calendar. Before I was working in an office that was actually also very close to the council offices, so I could just pop over there. Now I'm actually going to have a longer commute into the council office than I used to.
And Tony, what's the status with the Skyway with regard to parking?
I certainly have no idea. Does any council staff know about the Skyway? Is the Skyway open? Can we get places through the Skyway?
Sure, the Skyway is open.
It's open. I think you're right though, Jeremy, that it might close at 6 p.m., but I'll look into that and get that information out to commissioners.
That is a great point. I have frequently managed to end up not able to get into places anyway and end up just walking around and the whole thing. But that would be good to know.
And
I've
then,
had that problem too, where I've been locked out of the parking ramp because our meeting went too long. So I think we just need to be sure that we have a pretty clear understanding of both the what gets locked down and keep an eye on the clock when we run our meetings.
Yeah, they do sometimes lock some doors. And I've had a couple of meetings where I ended up having to walk up the car entrance and then had security guards going, "You're not supposed to do that." I'm like, well, I couldn't get in the other way. So yeah, that's a thing. It probably closes earlier across the board now. Otherwise, besides that, I also mentioned this to Emmett. I don't know if anything's going to come of it. We've been talking about open meeting law as it exists today. There are some bills working through that might pass and change something. So if potentially we have any need to do hybrid stuff in the future, it's possible that might become legal, but it hasn't yet. So we'll keep an eye on that and let you know if anything happens. I suppose I felt it's starting to get warmer despite the snowing while having tornado alarm testing. So also in the context of COVID restrictions lifting, we might have to start thinking about whether we're able to do tours this summer at all. And if so, where should that be? So, no plans, but something to put on your minds to start thinking about. Maybe we'll talk more about that next month. I think that's all I have. Other commissioner reports. If any.
Hey, this is Anthony. No commissioner report. But possibly Emmett, is there any? I'm sorry, I got kicked off for a little bit. I missed this, but Emmett, is there anything right now in the legislative process, especially with all of the really unique and high level of bonding bills? Is there anything unique that's coming up related to DNR, nature-based programs generally, or anything through legacy or arts that is actually something that we should be aware of or could be supportive of?
Anthony, thank you for the question. One thing that I'm thinking about is the DNR commissioner, Sarah Stroman, is kicking off this kind of long-term conservation and recreation funding conversation that she's looking to bring to the next legislative session. And she has reached out to us to talk about it. She's interested in sort of rethinking how we fund our outdoor spaces. And it's a big conversation, and I'm not exactly sure how we intersect with it, but that is a conversation that we should potentially engage. I could even invite the commissioner of DNR to attend one of our meetings for just open discussion. I don't know if there's any interest in that, but that's something that's certainly a possibility. Other things are bonding, conversation, Tony, but that's not what you were, or Anthony, that's not what you were referencing. our regional park system request is continuing to march through the process.
Yeah, no, I was just wondering if there's anything special or short term, or is there any way that we can, even in this process, I just wonder, is there anything that has come along from any other areas? There's a couple. It seems like there's a group working through the governor's office that is specifically looking at, and I can't remember the name of it, but it's basically our own state version of No Child Left in the Woods. I can't remember what it's called exactly, but the governor has formed a task force and kind of is organizing around that. And then in addition to that, there was the group that was organized, Linnea was part of, and they were putting together a state level focus on how recreation and outdoors. And so it seems like there was a couple of things that came along, and I was wondering if we were using this bonding, this surplus as an opportunity to do that, or is there anything where we can, again, be support or pressure around the idea of how we just broaden the way that we think about recreation, or how we tie this again to youth development or education, or what are the levers that we have to just create more funding, more flexible funding, and something. And in some ways, I've even been thinking about the nature-based recreation stuff is one opportunity to kind of bridge outstate, in-state stuff that I'm just seeing at the legislature right now. And so I just wonder, from your perspective, if you're up there, just where we as as advocates and partners can be supportive or adversarial for that regard, but just where could we lean in and help with the work that you're doing?
Anthony, I'll keep you posted. That outdoor recreation task force that you referenced is something that's feeding into the Commissioner of DNR's efforts. And I've been talking to someone on their staff about how we might intersect with that. So that's a really interesting thought. The challenge is I don't see it moving forward in this session, but
Yeah.
I'm not fully plugged in all the goings on in this legislative session.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks, Emmett.
Yeah, thank you. I'll keep my ears open, Anthony and commissioners, and let you know if I hear.
All right, thank you for that point, Anthony. Any other commission reports?
Hey, Tony, this is Jeremy. I've got something briefly.
Yeah.
So LCCMR is coming up for reauthorization as a constitutional amendment in the next couple of years. So right now, the bills or the exact language around that amendment is being crafted. So I would expect to see something on that later this year, starting up in advance of the next legislative session. So we'll see how that goes, and I'll keep you posted as I find out more, but I just know that constitutional amendments reauthorization will be coming up soon. And so if you value the utilization of lottery funds for the benefit of our environment and natural resources, this will be something to pay attention to. Thanks.
Chair Uruto?
Yeah.
I was just going to mention today's acquisition, the Big Marine Park Reserve, was made possible through the Legislative Citizen Commission on Minnesota Resources. It is the lottery proceeds funding, as well as the council match and the local match. But the LCCMR funding is the largest share by far of that. We rely on it.
I had not even realized that's the legacy one that are sort of getting within a decade of that. But yeah, the lottery one is only through 2025. Good to know. I'll have to start talking to people I know about that whenever I can until I get sick of it.
That's a topic we should continue talking about here. I think that's a great point, Jeremy and Tony, that it does sunset in 2024, and it will require it passed by the legislature and put on the ballot so great comments.
Okay, any other commissioner reports? right, council liaison. Do you have a report for us, Sue?
I don't, but I got to tell you, I really enjoy these meetings. I always learn so much, and I do want to do just one shout out. I got to be in a small group in a scenario planning workshop the other day with Jeremy and Monica, and it was really fun to be in that group with them. So I'm looking forward to getting to know you all a little better as we start meeting together in the same room. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a good point. It'd be nice to have a little bit of outside of meeting chit chat time too. Any staff reports? I'm sure you have some for us.
I don't have too much today. I'm glad, Anna, you got your video working. Good work. You're going to become a WebEx expert. I only wanted to add to what Tony was saying. Tony's taking the reentry into the in-person very seriously. If you have concerns about that or questions, please let me know. Sandy and I have already talked about setting up the meeting room. We're going to make sure that we're well spaced. It's a big room that we're in, room 1A. I also wanted to point out that the council has installed, like they updated their HVAC system. I don't know anything about these, but the new HVAC system is much better than it was before. And so the air is fresher and regularly not recirculated. I forgot what you say, but it's a good system. And so we'll really work to make the reentry as good as we can be, just because we recognize there is a lot of stress with this pandemic and the transitions involved with it. And so that's all I have today, Tony.
One other thing I mentioned in my previous conversations with you about the return stuff, Emmett, while we've been talking about commissioners and staff, for the public comment portion, do you think it might be possible for us to still accept public comments remotely if someone wants to do that?
Great question, Tony. I will look into it and I will get back to you.
Okay. I know that might be good if we can do it. It's a little bit awkward.
Good question, Tony. And I also really appreciate how Tony is tracking the bills that are going through the state legislature. I'm also watching those open meeting law bills, so we'll continue to keep you up to date on that. And I don't know if we can anticipate changes for this session, but there are 2 bills under consideration, as Tony called out.
Yeah, we've had some, for those of you who are a little newer to the commission, we've had some conversations in the past just around like weather. If we have a bad snowstorm on a meeting day, it'd be nice if some people that live a little bit further out in the further reaches of Metro could just say, hey, I'll just call into this one. But because of the way open meeting law stuff exists, we couldn't accommodate that. But suddenly the COVID stuff kind of kickstarted a couple of legislatures to look at the open meeting law and be like, wait, some of this is really out of date.